The Roommate by Emanuel Tareem. Elias woke up drenched in sweat, bolting upright in bed. His breathing was ragged and his heart pounded wildly. Where am I? It took him a while to regain his bearings, and even longer to shake off the bone-chilling terror that coursed through his body, until the shadows in his dimly lit room no longer seemed so dark and threatening. His eyes fell on Raul, who lay sprawled on the sofa across the small studio apartment. Raul was awake. Their eyes met. Raul wasn't one for words, so he returned Elias' gaze silently. Yet Elias couldn't shake the feeling that a grim satisfaction glimmered in Raul's expression, almost as if he knew what was happening inside Elias and enjoyed it. Wasn't he smiling? Nightmare didn't even begin to describe what Elias had just experienced. Pure horror was closer to the truth. He could no longer recall all the details of the hyper-realistic dream. As vivid as it had been, almost more lifelike than the waking world he now inhabited. The memory slipped through his fingers like sand. Only the sense of unspeakable dread lingered sharply in his mind. What he did remember was that he had been tortured and, in the end, brutally hacked to pieces. But by whom and why, he couldn't say. He only knew that he had suffered indescribable pain and screamed like a man being flayed alive. Elias glanced at Raul again, who was still curled up on the sofa, but was now stretching, throwing him a sly, sideways glance. Once more in the room's half-light, Elias thought he saw a hidden smile and a wicked gleam in Raul's eyes. But when Elias quickly flicked on the overhead light beside his bed to get a better look, there was nothing. "Meow," Raul said softly and began grooming himself. A nervous tick, or had Elias only imagined that smile? Raul leapt down from the sofa and padded over to Elias, who sat perched on the edge of the bed. He rubbed against Elias's feet, meowing. Then he looked up and locked eyes with him. Meow. For weeks now, Elias had been sleeping with the bedside lamp on, plagued by horrifying nightmares. More than once he had awoken from one of these nightmares to find Raul already awake, watching him, smiling. But could that really be true? Perhaps it was a trick of the dim lighting. Elias bent down, picked Raul up, and placed him on his lap. Their eyes met again. This time there was no doubt. Raul's eyes gleamed maliciously, and he was smiling. No, grinning openly at him. At that moment, a flood of memories from the dream surged back into Elias' mind. The same devilish grin Raul wore as he inflicted unspeakable torments on him and finally dismembered him with some sort of mechanical contraption. Elias seized Raul by the scruff of his neck and hurled him across the room, screaming, "It was you all along, wasn't it?" Raul landed gracefully on all fours and broke into a sinister laugh. "Got me," he said. Then he calmly licked his paw. Elias froze in shock. "You can talk." Raul looked up and nodded. Then he said, "It's about time, Elias, that you start taking your meds again." He gestured with his head toward the small dresser by the wall, where Elias kept his medication. "Take your pills, then I'll disappear." "Is this a trick?" Elias asked, trembling with fear. "Maybe. You can't be sure. After all, I'm a manifestation of your own madness, a product of your imagination, a fiction. Take your medication, Elias, or terrible things will happen. Do you really think a talking cat is a good omen?" Elias leapt to his feet, dashed to the dresser, and pulled out a blister pack. He swallowed several pills at once. "Good boy," Raul said with a smile, "until the next relapse."